And hit record. All right, we're official. So, so welcome to this introduction to the Cleanse and Restore program. Thank you so much to those of you who are in presence. I know that it's really with a global community, especially, it is, I think, one of my biggest challenges at this point to choose a time that works well for people. So if and when you're able to attend in presence, it's really appreciated because although it is technology, it is a conversation, it's a sharing. And so thanks to those of you signed in, and also thanks to you who will be interacting with the recording. So some of you that will be watching this, I know, have already done the cleanse, which is so exciting that you've come back for more. But most of you, and the intention behind this webinar is to introduce you to what this is all about, and to give you some background on the hows and whys of the existence of such a thing. And I don't know about you guys, but for a long time, and I feel it really has been a long time, because even when I was in medical school, the master cleanse, I don't know if you remember, it was like the lemonade cleanse with cayenne pepper and this. And as a medical student, I experimented with everything because my patients were asking me about everything. But definitely the experience with that cleanse and other things similar definitely created a connotation for me that cleanses were something dramatic and usually deprivation based. And I think probably the word carries some meaning for each of us, and maybe not even necessarily very nice meaning, other than that sort of really sellable idea of like, oh, I must be dirty, I want that. Right. And so those of you who know me well know that I am on a mission in this life to move away from the deprivation and fear-based mindset, and to be a facilitator for re-educating and returning us to the inherent knowledge that we already carry about life, but that society has kind of trained out of us. And so if cleanse is a scary word for you, I'm hoping that I can perhaps start to recreate some neural connections around a different meaning. And also, if you've interacted with my newsletter or any of the preliminary information leading up to this moment, this introductory cleanse, hopefully you're getting the idea that this is not a dramatic deprivation based starvation anything. This is really a beautifully laid out program to facilitate our optimal well-being in a moment where the world is not so easily supportive of health. So hopefully with that in mind, you find yourself in the right place. So welcome to this spring reset, cleanse and restore. And I also just want to comment, so I'm going to try to say a lot in a very short amount of time. You'll have the recording, and you also know that you have direct access to me via email or WhatsApp. So should questions arise as you're considering your participation, please reach out so that I have the opportunity to help you have all of the knowledge that you need to make the right decision for you. And spring in traditional Chinese medicine, as you may have heard in some of my recordings, is such a beautiful time to do a cleanse, because everything is in a rebirth phase. Everything is being reborn, and just like a seedling trying to make it like burst through the soil, it's a great time also just energetically to remove obstacles. And that being said, I do have a large community in South America in the Southern Hemisphere, and they are moving into autumn, which is also a great reminder, I think, in life of the relationship of everything. But if you happen to be watching this and you're in the Southern Hemisphere, please do not think that you can't participate because you're not experiencing spring. Autumn is actually, it's not necessarily the energetic of cleansing, but it is a time where we are moving into the quiet of winter. And so removing obstacles that we don't want to bring into hibernation with us can also be a really beautiful ritual. So one thing about cleansing is I believe in all of these possible like ideas that we have whispering in our heads, that we think of them as something new. And some of you have been on many webinars with me, which I really appreciate. Community is everything. When we start to move as an amoeba, as a tribe, the power and the support is just amplified, and it's something so exciting. But this, you've probably heard me say this as it relates to essential oils or maybe even traditional Chinese medicine, is a lot of these ideas that we're selling as new have been around for a really long time. The difference is that our world, our modern world, and a lot of the things that we are surrounded with and interacting with no longer reflect the times when a lot of these traditions and rituals were cultivated and created. And in those times, thousands of years ago, life was still in harmony with nature, more or less, let's say. And I'm in Morocco right now, and it's Ramadan. And it's so neat even to think it's a springtime ritual. And I know that there are religious connotations, but in almost every religion and so many philosophies, if you really look at the origin of a lot of the traditions, they're very cyclical. They actually move with the rhythm of nature. And then of course we have capitalized on a lot of those ideas and made them into things that it's hard to like dig through and discover the origin. But even this like fasting during the day in the spring of Ramadan is in a way, it is an appropriate type of cleansing from the dormancy of winter. Although I know that there is much more, many more rich teachings in the tradition of Islam, and I'm learning a lot about Islam now that I'm here in Morocco. But all of this to say is that the idea of cleansing is actually not a new one. It's just that we are needing to take this ancient wisdom, we're needing to bring these paradigms that have been in existence for thousands of years into a relationship with a world that looks really different than when they originated. And I'll mention here too that in traditional Chinese medicine, and I know I'll have some colleagues watching this, we don't really advocate for cleansing. And I'll tell you why, and we'll discover this throughout the webinar. We really advocate for like cleaning up the diet and looking around and making sure your environment is not bringing in too many toxic influences. And there again, it's a tricky one because I'm a bit of a purist with yoga, with traditional Chinese medicine. I'm trying to carry these traditions in as pure a form as my teachers have trained me, to my community, to the people that I'm lucky enough to serve. And yet there is this very real conversation happening that the world no longer looks as it did when a lot of these things were developed. So how can we keep the purity of the idea and also make it relatable and actually functional in a world that looks really different? Okay, I'm doing pretty well with the arrows. So why cleanse? Just in general, we'll take a step back. And as I mentioned, some of you I think are kind of familiar. Maybe I think some of you were even on the webinar with my business partners, Jim and Jen, in January. So definitely we're living in a world where we have a lot of toxic influences, and throughout the experience of the cleanse, we're going to be diving more deeply into each of these subjects. So I'm going to try to keep it bird's eye view today, again, to sort of draw the picture of like the why and the how, as this is an introduction. And then once you decide to commit to the program, we're going to have time to expand on a lot of these things. But we're definitely living in a world where there are thousands upon thousands of chemicals that are being put in food sources, cleaning products, perfumes, you name it, you can find things. And most of these are not being studied for safety. And most of them are not really being regulated. And I don't want to take a doomsday approach to this. It's just really real information, and it's real time what we are experiencing. And a lot of us, I think it sends us, myself included, I definitely have days where I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? It's like, so it's so pervasive, it's so hard, there's so much information telling me that all of this stuff that's so normal to interact with is bad. But like, what do I do? Well, the fact that you're listening to this webinar, you're already doing it in a way. So I just want to celebrate that you've taken a step of interest and curiosity to start to understand it in a different way and not allow it to get you into that sort of like fear-based place from which we make really poor decisions most of the time. But we are definitely living in a pretty toxic time. And although the body is equipped to deal with toxic influences, and something that most people don't know is that when we talk about a toxin, right, it's like a poison. It's an element that the body cannot, that affects the function of the body negatively. And one of the biggest sources of toxins is actually cellular metabolism. It's happening right inside your body. And so the body is equipped to deal with toxins. But as everything in health and everything in our well-being, everything in life is a relationship, if you have a negative influence that exceeds the healthy balancing ability to clear that negative influence, then we get into problems. And that's what we're seeing in modern life. And that's what a lot of us are dealing with, but don't really know. We're not really aware that that's what we're dealing with. So I'm hoping to present some information, some facts to help you understand what's happening and then what, of course, we can do about it. So here's a funny, scary list. I don't usually put stuff like this in the slides, but it's interesting. So in purple are some of the more common things that I see in my medical practice, also as a yoga instructor. And I'd love for you to just glance at this slide to see if anything pops out at you as something perhaps you experience. It could be a very gentle version of any of these things. It could be just keep in mind that this is not intended to be one of those crazy pharmaceutical companies, right? Like, take this, but the side effects are death and you're going to sleep forever and, all of that stuff. But these are a lot of things that we are experiencing as human beings. And what I see a lot in my medical practice and what I see a lot, even in my work with yoga, is this very global mentality of like, no, but it's okay. And I feel like if you took a deep breath as you're looking at this list and you got really honest with yourself, and I'm not saying maybe you have nothing, but I'm even looking at the list. I have definitely had toxic relationships. I have definitely struggled with my energy. There are things. This isn't to say that there's a problem. The problem is that for a lot of these things, even from the beginning, because society tells us to keep going and gives us a lot of things that fulfill the immediacy of masking the symptoms of dis-ease in the body, mind, and spirit, we have collaboratively grabbed onto this like, no, I don't have a lot of energy, but it's okay. And then built up over time, that does end up leading to states of disease. And the problem and the tricky challenge there is that often it happens so subtly that we're consistently making small shifts in our behavior, in our perspective, in our storytelling around what we experience in our body, in our spirit, in our breath, in our mind, that continually makes it okay until it's not okay. And usually when we arrive to that state, and I hope no one has yet had to handle this, but some of us have, when you arrive in that state of like, uh-oh, it's not okay, there is a big ball of yarn to unravel. And again, it's one of my aspirations, at least in this lifetime, with the guidance of the people who have come before me and the amazing teachers that I have had, is to in some small way, begin to untie this ball of yarn back to a place where we are once again in touch with our experience and can move in the direction of taking care of our health versus getting to these dramatic states. So I really want to move away from this mentality of like, no, but it's okay. And these really subtle shifts that lead us into states of not functioning well. And I will say, and I'm going to try not to go down too many rabbit holes, but you know that I just have so much to say about all of these subjects, is that I really believe that we have a duty to be well. And I'm going to say that if you're listening to this webinar, that we are in already a state of privilege, that we can even ask these questions, that we even have access maybe to shifting our mentality and finding products or ideas or communities, right, that can help us to shift. So I want to celebrate that we are relatively in a state of privilege if we can even interact with most of this stuff. But I really feel that it's our duty to be well. And we're going to continue to talk about this throughout the webinar and also throughout the program. But think about a time, and I don't know what the next slide is, but I hate looking at, oh, that's equally not as lovely. So let's go back to the list, and at least you can like make your eyes kind of fuzzy and don't connect or attach to too much of this. But like, think of a time, right, when you have felt maybe emotionally unstable, or think of a time where you were sick, or think of a time when you just felt in a state of unbalance. And then think about your ability to respond to life in those moments, and think about your ability to make decisions that were really truly in alignment with what you believe in life. And I'm going to say across the board, most of us felt some compromise in that. And so I just want to also key into the fact that if we are able to take control of our well-being, we are actually doing a service in a way to everything, because the better you are, the better you are going to interact with life. And butterfly effect, whatever you want to call it, ripples in the sea, that is going to lend itself to everyone around you being better as well. I hope that makes sense. So on to the next scary slide. And I'll also say about this list, it's so easy to begin to identify with labels, right? So yeah, I am a this, or I have this, and then that becomes part of our identity. We won't get too much into identity right now, because that is such a very hot topic and off topic for where we're going. So we know, I need a tech person. We know and we understand that there are a lot of toxic influences in life. It's nice to sort of get a visual of how we are interacting with them. Here is just, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. There are a lot of unnatural chemicals, like thousands. I think it's said, I was going to try to stay away from statistics, because that can get into deeper conversations in different ways. But I want to say that it's one of the statistics that I have in my notes is like, women are using 12 self-care products per day that are introducing more than 100 toxic chemicals onto either the surface of the skin or anywhere else. And anything you apply to the surface of your skin, 60% of that gets absorbed into your bloodstream. So we might think like, well, I'm just putting it on the surface, not as big of a deal, but it actually ends up being a big deal. But there are many, many ways that we are interacting, unfortunately, with a lot of these toxic influences. And again, our body is equipped to handle and eliminate toxins, but when there are too many, we start running into problems. Why might we care? Why might we care that there are so many chemicals and toxins now in our environment, in our food sources? Well, more and more research is showing that a lot of these chemicals are neurotoxins, so affecting the nervous system. They're also affecting very strongly the endocrine system, which is your hormonal network. I'm going to say most women are very intimately in tune with how their hormones are moving. Men, you've got them too. And you are also governed by these biochemical messages. And you are also influenced by the things that are wreaking havoc on this system, dangerous for the immune system, creating cancers and damaging for the liver and kidneys. We're going to get into that in just a second. And here are some statistics, but I'm going to pass that by for now. We need something positive at this point because that's a lot of like, oh my gosh. So, what to do about this? Well, the first thing again is that I want to celebrate the human body. It really is a miraculous thing. Your body is a superhero. You have a lot of pathways in the body that are continuously and endlessly and without pause cleansing you, clearing your system of as many toxic influences as possible. So your body really is a superhero. Some of these are the liver and kidneys. Mostly the liver and kidneys are taking toxic influences out of the blood and transforming them in some way and eliminating them through the urine. Every time you exhale, the carbon dioxide is also carrying, right, toxic substances out of the body, the skin, the lymph, and the colon. We're going to focus a lot on the colon today, a lot on the digestive system, but all of these systems together are helping your body consistently to do what it's meant to do, which is to detoxify. But let's hone in just a little bit on the digestive system, because as I mentioned, the liver and kidneys are dealing with the bloodstream. The lungs are doing their things, but how do toxic influences get into the bloodstream? Well, I already mentioned that we can absorb some of that topically, but a lot of what's happening and a lot of what we're seeing today as far as dis-ease and a non-harmonious system in the body is due to too much taxation and a lot of disordered digestive system functioning. So gut health is another one of these terms. I feel like I know many of you are watching and actually I can't see some of you, but like raise your hand if you've heard about gut health or people talking about gut health, right? Everyone's talking about gut health. Well, the reason is a good reason, and that's because most people are experiencing some sort of gut health problem. Why is the gut so important? Let's focus on the positive first. Well, the gut is, and by the way, the digestive system is everything from the mouth, right? The saliva contains enzymes that begins to break down food to the anus, which is the exit. And there are many things in between, and they work together systemically. So it's nice to remember that even though we live in a world of immediacy and dissection and taking systems apart and looking at them singularly, all of life is integrated. And so when we look at the health of the system that is our body, we have to keep a sense of integration. We have to keep that bird's eye view. So the digestive system, the gut, is primarily important because it provides the nourishment that is necessary for life. That's a pretty important role. This, of course, leads to our vitality, our ability to metabolize, have the power to do all of the functions in the body. Nourishment, very basic, but incredibly important. Elimination, equally as important. And if any of you have taken courses with me where we're focusing on traditional Chinese medicine, you'll see here that I included a beautiful picture of the lungs with the colon. Why? Well, because the lung system is our first like taking in and letting go element. It falls under the metal element in traditional Chinese medicine. And it just so happens that its paired organ is the colon, is the large intestine. And so even thousands of years ago, they already understood that this like taking in, assimilating, determining what is actually good and what needs to be eliminated, and then that process happening through the digestive system, they already recognized the importance and integrity of those things. But being able to eliminate healthfully toxic things things that are not valuable to the body, that shouldn't be in the body, is, I would say, equally as important to getting the nourishment that we need for life. So the digestive system is really the root of health for everything. We're going to get a little deeper into that. And I promise we're going to circle around to why that relates to the bloodstream in just a second. But it really is the central line. And in fact, in traditional Chinese medicine, one of the most ancient sort of schools of thought was called the Earth School. And of course, the digestive organs, which are the spleen and stomach, under the earth element in traditional Chinese medicine, a little bit different than we look at it in Western medicine. The Earth School said, no matter what the disease, treat the digestive system first. And now modern science is catching up to some of the intelligence of this that, again, was witnessed and recognized and already known thousands of years ago. But there are different influences and different taxations on this wisdom and how all of this is happening. And so I'll just mention this last thing before we continue on, and that is that so much research now showing the relationship between gut health and the immune system. And in traditional Chinese medicine, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but here again, the lungs, the first organ responsible. It governs the skin, it governs the breath. When you get sick, what happens, right? It's all in the lungs. So this is the first part of the immune system, very intimately related to and dependent on the health of the digestive system. Modern science is now showing that to be true. And also mood, brain health. They're doing more and more research showing that our mood and our healthful expression and integration of emotional experiences is also directly related to the health of the gut. There's a lot of really cool research now happening with ADD, ADHD, and gut health, with depression and gut health. So finally, modern science is kind of catching up with these very ancient understandings of how these systems are integrated. But foundationally, where that all begins is the digestive system. I just took this graphic from NPR because I think it's absolutely adorable. I won't stay too long because I know I talk too much and there's too much information and I want to be mindful of time. But like, these are all the microbes in your system, like painting the picture of your brain. It's a pretty impressionable image, isn't it? To me it is. Hopefully it is to you too. Okay. This is a science slide. There's like no niceties about this because this is one of the most important precursors to consider when you're considering, do you even remember that you're on a webinar about a cleanse? We're getting there. Yes, I promise. But all of this laying the foundation of why would we even want to embark on a program like this? This is important because if the why is strong for you, the commitment and your ability to follow the ritual through for the whole 30 days is going to be so much easier. So that's why I'm making this very dense, hopefully with information that triggers your curiosity and helps you to understand what is going on. But so your body is actually full of bacteria, viruses, and fungi. And most of us associate these words with bad things, with infection, and they definitely can be. But foundationally, and mostly in the gut, we have more bacterial, viral, and fungal cells in the body than we have human cells. I'm not sure if the statistic is here. Oh, yeah, it is. They say that there's like 40 trillion bacterial cells in your body and 30 trillion human cells. So we're actually more bacteria than we are human, which is sort of interesting. Don't think on that too much. Maybe meditate on it later or when you have like time and space when you're walking out in the fresh air. That I think probably leads to some deeper questions of existence, which we're not here to do on this webinar. But the interesting thing here is that we have, and it's lovingly what we call the microbiome of the gut. And one of the ways that I love to think about the bacterial presence in our body is like the Amazon forest, right? So you are rich in these symbiotic critters, creatures, trees. You choose the word that you can actually relate to and makes you feel good about the idea in your body. So you have this like Amazonian, rich, dense forest in your body that is doing and facilitating all of the vital things that your body is supposed to be doing. Unfortunately, what is happening in modern life because of our nutritional sources, because of so many dense and toxic influences, is a huge deforestation of your Amazonian microbiome. Hope that language makes sense. I just love I love the when I think about like Amazon forest and it, I mean, it could be noted because we know that we're a microcosm of the macrocosm. It's very interesting when you think about the association of gut health to the brain. And again, think back to it was a pretty strong statement, but I think we have a duty to get ourselves well, because I actually believe, I know this is off the deep end, but the Amazon forest actually is going through an enormous deforestation. And I feel like a lot of these tragedies that humans are inflicting on the earth are a reflection of what we are experiencing internally due to some of the choices that we've made with industrialization. I know that's kind of a big subject, but eventually it's something important for us to think about. And in the yogic tradition, in the Buddhist tradition, in the Taoist tradition, in all traditions that I've studied at least, and please let me know if you've heard of another tradition, but everyone suggests that we start with us. When we heal ourselves, we are then able to be the beacon of influential energy for those around us, right? Not being a tyrant, like trying to make change when we ourselves are like a deforested, is that a word? Deforested Amazon, but to really like take care of our own garden so that the clarity of the brain and the harmony of the nervous system is affording us the ability to interact with life with deeper intelligence. Wow, that was a big rabbit hole, not planned in the presentation, but as long as we're kind of like panning out continuously in this webinar, I think it's an important thing to consider. So we have this microbiome. It's comprised of a lot of different types of bacteria. And just like in any organism, there's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria. And so we want to make sure that we have a good balance of both, and that the good bacteria is constantly and continuously exceeding the bad bacteria. What happens when we start to get deforestation is that the integrity of the colon, the integrity of the intestines begins to be compromised. And your intestines, although we think of them as organs of kind of like elimination, of course, they are actually responsible for taking all of the good nutrients that our body needs through the surface of the intestinal wall into the bloodstream. But as you can imagine, if your body goes through, because of all of the possible different negative influences, areas of deforestation, then trees fall down, right? Because the roots can no longer be rooted and mudslides happen. And so as the integrity of the colon is compromised, as the integrity of the lining of the gut is compromised by, we'll just keep with the Amazonian forest deforestation, what begins to happen is that things that don't belong in your bloodstream enter into the bloodstream instead of getting healthfully eliminated. And what this does is create a response from the immune system. And because the integrity, once compromised, requires treatment, let's say, to regain its integrity, there becomes a continual leakage of things that shouldn't be in your bloodstream getting into your bloodstream. And finally, we circle back around to the taxation on the liver and kidneys because they are filtering the bloodstream. So your colon is doing its best to like hold its guard, although it's compromised. And the liver and kidneys are now overtaxed because a lot of stuff is getting into the bloodstream to be filtered that they can't keep up with. And the immune system is on high alert because there's a lot of shit in your system that shouldn't be in your system. And left unchecked, we get systemic inflammation, and we also left really unchecked, we move into autoimmunity. And it's actually reported, I think the last physician that I heard speak said like 70% of people are moving into some sort of autoimmune vulnerability. It's a scary number and way beyond the topic of this webinar, but it's something that I believe we should be paying attention to. So the leaky gut, which we also hear a lot these days, is a compromise in the integrity of the lining. And what can cause this? Well, of course, we know toxic influences, but here is a short list of the things that have become very common in our modern world to use and interact with that are also creating this same taxation, this deforestation of the microbiome, the loss of integrity, therefore, in the colon and the gut walls, and thereby lending itself to a lot of bad feeling things in our bodies. And so a lot of us take NSAIDs. This is like your ibuprofen, right? Antibiotics. We know all about it. We can leave it also for another webinar. And again, this is kind of like that symptoms list before you're looking at it and you're like, oh shit, excuse my language. Before you move too far into shame, let me just pause you and invite you to take a deep breath. And just say to you, our society doesn't teach us very well. Sorry to say that. There are amazing teachers. There are people, warriors, trying to make a difference in life. But most of our modern society is about selling. Most of our modern society is about immediacy. And so if any of these things are within the spectrum of your experience and you are somewhere also in your life in a place where you're experiencing like, I don't feel well, but I don't know why, and I don't really know what to do about it. A lot of this is governed by a loss of the integrity of the digestive system, and thereby what we would call like a toxic load buildup in the body, just because our superhero systems can only do too much. But if we continue to load on the influences that are compromising and debilitating for the system, and we're not doing things to nurture and help, I don't know if you can hear the seagull outside my window, but there's a really loud one. I don't know if that's going to translate into the microphone here, but let's not move too far into shame. Let's stay in the realm of, you're on this webinar. There are things that we can do, and there's like a lot that we can relearn to take control and to move ourselves back into better states of health. Can you hear that? So what I'd love for you to do just for a moment is to imagine yourself thriving. So maybe taking a moment wherever you are and closing your eyes. And as you close your eyes, the inclination to sigh might come, and that is our body's natural way to relieve tension. And if that natural inclination doesn't come, don't worry. Just take a few deep breaths with your eyelids soft, your eyes closed. And just start to feel into your current experience. Maybe tapping into whatever brought you to this webinar, to wanting to connect with the idea of a cleanse and restore program, whether it's not having access to energy like you used to. You're going through hormonal transitions. Perhaps there's something real time, strong and influential in your spectrum of experience right now that you would love to help, that you would love to heal from. And once you get in touch with whatever is inspiring your engagement in this conversation, whatever, to the best of your ability and with the deepest honesty you can, whatever it is that you're touching, that you're like, wow, I would really love to get past this. I would really love to heal this. I would really love to feel better in this area. Now imagine yourself having done that. Imagine yourself thriving. Imagine yourself feeling really free in your body and your mind, in your breath. Just for a moment, feel how that imagination translates through the experience of your physical body. Imagine yourself thriving. Imagine yourself free and well. And then when you're ready, open your eyes. This is a picture of me in my imagination thriving. If you've been on webinars with me before, you've probably seen this picture. I just can't find one that's better than this. And if you don't connect with, like, the nature woman talking to the birds in the trees, then obviously not to worry. But there's something about this image that just, wow, like, yes, let's keep working for this. So let's talk about now the Cleanse and Restore program. So the Cleanse and Restore program is a 30-day program. It can be extended to 50 days. But now that you kind of have a foundation of the why behind even offering a program like this, let's quickly look at the logistics of it so that you can wrap your mind around what it actually looks like. Um, Before I get into this, I do just want to comment on, so this is a supplement-based program. For those of you who either worked with me medically in Chicago or anywhere else in the world, or have known me maybe a little bit longer, you actually know that I'm not a huge advocate for supplements. So why in the world am I offering a supplement-based program? Well, one of the reasons is for all of the reasons that I've already described to you, in that our world is no longer naturally supportive of our body's natural abilities. There can be a time and a place and a quantity for introducing elements into the body to assist it in refinding its optimal balance. And so this is the way that I love to approach the conversation about this particular cleanse. I would never be an advocate for just blindly taking supplements because someone told you that they're good. But after experiencing this particular cleanse system and program for the last 3 years, I can wholeheartedly say, obviously, a lot of you know that I'm partnered with doTERRA. So all of the products that we use in the cleanse come from this company whose purity is unquestionable and integrity is also unquestionable. But as a medical professional, I actually, it really took me a couple times with my team through the cleanse to learn enough about all of the elements of the cleanse to feel very confident saying, I really trust the process of this, and I feel that it's valuable, taking into consideration all that I've just mentioned and all that I've just commented on. I feel that it can be very valuable as an assistant to our journey in reclaiming our states of health. And so the cleanse is divided into 3 phases. The 3 phases are 10 days each. The first phase is the activation phase. So in the activation phase, what we're doing is taking a grouping of supplements that are supporting specifically the liver, the kidneys, and the lungs, and their ability to do their job well. So you already know now, you're probably like minor experts because I talked a lot, probably too much, about the natural detoxification pathways of the body. So the first thing we want to do in this cleanse and supportive program for the body's optimal function is to, one, begin supporting the body nutritionally. And I will show you some of the supplements in just a second. But this first phase of the cleanse is really oriented around sort of bolstering these organs that are continually working to detoxify the body. So giving them support, kind of opening their pathways, almost like if you could imagine the bloodstream is like becomes a traffic jam. And so in this first phase, what we're doing is we're going in, we're being like, okay, you guys hold on a second, you guys flow on through because you can be handled, like one at a time. And we're sort of reorganizing the way things are moving through the body and supporting physiologically the function of these organs. And again, I want to come home again and again to the body is put together miraculously to do all of this. And so a lot of the cleanses actually that are on the major market, unfortunately, don't do what they say they're going to do because there's nothing that can do what the body already knows how to do. And so in this program, all we're doing in a way is supporting the body's natural ability to do what it is meant to do as freely and as healthfully as possible. That said, in phase two, because looking at all of the things preceding this, we know that in a loss of integrity of the microbiome in the gut and an imbalance usually for a lot of us in good bacteria, bad bacteria, and also a loss of integrity in the lining and the filter versus protect of, wow, I said that so inarticulately. You can follow me. All these years, right, doing webinars, and still it's like an incredible experience every single time. All of that said, we have in the second phase what we call the kill phase. I don't really love this. I like the reset phase a little bit better, but in actuality, we are introducing one supplement into the organization of things that you will be providing your body as support for this whole process that is going to go in and get rid of stuff that we don't need, including parasitic influences and candida, which we'll talk more about in the digestive webinar that's included in the cleanse. But in this reset phase, this is the phase where most people, myself included, the last two times I've done the cleanse, I really feel that sense of kind of like what we would call detox, a little bit of fatigue, changes in appetite, because the body is working really hard. Once we bolster it in phase one, in phase two, we now have provided the tapestry, the template, and the strength to go in and get rid of some of the influences that are affecting the body's natural ability to regrow its Amazon forest. And then in phase three, we're going to provide a couple of extra supplements too. We're going to get rid of the kill phase. We're going to go in, and with those first two phases complete, we are going to plant as many saplings as we can in your microbiome and assist the body in this re-nourishment process to rebuild and reintegrate all of these natural abilities. This is perhaps the most important slide in the whole presentation, and we're getting there. I'm checking the time, so I'm actually doing pretty well with a lot of information. And then if there are any questions, we'll have a few minutes. A lot of you that reached out to me before this webinar were like, well, do we not eat? Do we not? Well, hopefully, I've said it a million times, I'm just going to keep saying it so that we all are on the same page. There is no deprivation in this approach, in this program. But if we are looking at all of the possible reasons that we are not feeling healthy, and that we are possibly carrying a toxic load that is too much for the body to handle. And we are engaging in a program where we are giving the body an opportunity to heal and reset and restabilize, to provide yourself with the optimal experience in this program. You are invited to get rid of as many toxic influences as possible. As a general rule of thumb, we really advocate for a plant-based diet. If you are not vegetarian, if you have never been vegetarian, I was really hoping that my sister could be on this webinar, but she got called into a meeting. But she and her husband did the cleanse with us in January. They are definitely not vegetarians, and their kitchen was under construction, and they did the cleanse together. So sharing is caring. Also, if you're on this webinar and you're going to do the cleanse, grab a family member, grab a friend. It's so much fun to do it together and sharing this experience. But they did a month of more or less vegetarian, and I wish they were here. It's not as good coming out of my mouth, and I know that Kimber will be on some of the webinars throughout the cleanse, because they're actually doing the cleanse with us again, so she can give her own testimonial. But all I'm going to say is, if they could do it, and I don't mean this negatively at all, Kimber, if you're listening, if they could do it without a kitchen, anyone can do it for 30 days. It's sort of a plant-based diet. If you're a meat eater, if you have other things going on in your body that requires different sources of protein, of course, we're going to talk in depth about this in the preliminary webinar on April 15th. I'm going to give you a lot of guidelines for food, recipes, eating, shopping lists, resources to help you understand what is possibly toxic, what is not. It's too much to go into in this introductory webinar. But the main point here is, if you are going to give your body the opportunity to heal, and we know that there are certain things that create inflammation and toxicity in the body, logically, we want to do our best during the cleanse and maybe beyond to eliminate as many of those influences as possible. And that's it. And, when I had my medical practice years ago in Chicago, and I was working often with people with like chronic inflammation and different pain disorders and things that all sort of had an origin, a shared common origin of inflammation or systemic inflammation in the body. And I would suggest, like no dairy, no wheat, no sugar, limit processed foods. And it was not so uncommon for people to kind of go into like low grade panic mode, like, how am I gonna, okay, so I get it. We are habitual creatures. You have your way of being, you have your way of living, and if some of this is going to be a big change for you, that's why we do it together as a group. That's why we do it together as a program, to really feel that support, that sense of accountability and the guidance, so that you're never without someone to answer a question that you have. But the overriding theme here is that everything in life is temporary. And when our bodies are in a state of disease, or when we are feeling unwell, and we have in our current habit patterns like addiction to coffee or addiction to sugar, we actually no longer have the biofeedback of what those are doing in the body. We know we need them, but we don't really get the real-time feedback of what response they create in the body. And so I invite you, as you're considering this, or I know some of you are even already registered, as you're cultivating and creating your mindset around doing this program together, I want you to repeat to yourself many, many times, if any of this is like, how am I going to do this? That everything is temporary. You are gifting yourself 30 days to allow your body to catch up and to learn more about the things that are perhaps influencing your ability to maintain that state of health. I'm not going to tell you, because I would be lying, that it's going to be easy at the end of the cleanse, because you're going to feel good. You're going to be empowered with new information. And part of you is going to want to go back to your old way of being. And when you do, you are going to finally feel what some of those things actually do to you. But it's just information, right? And that's to be tackled at the end. This whole thing is laid out as a really well integrated process with a lot of support. But the cleanse simplified is that we're going to eat as close to the earth as possible. And we're going to do our best collaboratively to eliminate as many toxic influences as possible, from products in your home to products that you're using to, of course, the things that you're ingesting, to give your body the optimal opportunity to do what this cleanse is meant to do. And that is to clear, to bolster your body's natural ability, and to replenish the Amazonian forest that is miraculously doing all of the amazing functions that it does in your body. So just a really quick look as we wrap up, last few slides, just to get an idea of what we are looking at. And these also I'm going to be going through in the introductory webinar. Once you're registered, we will be going through all of these supplements one by one so that you really have a good idea about what's going into your body and why. So the phase 1 activate, these are some of the supplements that we're going to be using. The Zendocrine and the Zendocrine capsules are supporting the lungs, liver, and kidneys specifically. Here are our nutrition and cellular function trio. The Terrazyme is our digestive enzyme. It's helping the body to lower the activation energy of processing and assimilating all of this information. And lemon essential oil, well, it's an all-time favorite because it actually, research is showing that it does increase glutathione in the liver, which is directly stimulating the liver's ability to healthfully filter the blood better. And in traditional Chinese medicine, it actually helps us to scour like dampness and humidity and congestion out of the digestive system and the body. Days 11 to 20 looks pretty similar, but we introduce the GX Assist instead of the Zendocrine capsules. And this is our powerful warrior that is going to rid the body of things that are standing in the way of our forest to regrow. And then in the third phase, we introduce the probiotics here, so replenishing the microbiome. And the DDR prime is actually specifically formulated to deal with free radicals, which are a natural result of a lot of the detoxification processes that are happening in the body. So we're just giving the body the support. And actually throughout, if I don't know if maybe it's sort of like a game, you may have noticed that the Zendocrine complex is with us for the entirety. And you also may have noticed that this, along with the Zendocrine capsules, this blend, specifically targeting liver, lung, and kidneys. And that's because if hopefully I presented this information well, although a lot of this is oriented around the digestive system, without the healthy functioning of the other detoxification pathways throughout the entirety of the process, we're not actually integrating the body in its entirety. And so the Zendocrine complex stays with us the whole time. And again, more on the specific things once we are getting ready to begin the cleanse. Oh my gosh, it was just 1 hour right now. I don't know if I've ever done it in that good of timing, even though we started a little bit late. So thank you for hanging with me. Next steps. Order your kit. If you're ready to register for the cleanse and this sounds intriguing to you, the registration is to order the supplies that are necessary for you to move through this program with us. Now, I will say that if you have any questions about the cost of the kit or extra things that you might want or need, all you have to do is reach out. I'm here to guide, to make sure you're in the right place, to make sure that the why behind your being here is a good one, so that again we can keep our integrity and accountability together. It's so much more fun this way. And you know, hopefully, again, those of you who have known me a while, like there's a right time and place for everything. So I am really hoping that you're in the right place at the right time, and I'm excited to share this experience with you. But if there's any doubt in your mind, please allow me to assist you in really clarifying whether it's your own storytelling or whether it's just a piece of information that's missing. So what is the program going to look like? That was a heck of a lot of information. And even looking at the supplements, maybe you get a little googly eyed. But essentially, what's going to happen is that we're all going to be taking these supplements in their designated structure for a 30-day period. And that will be bookended and integrated with educational and check in webinars. So the registration is just you buying your kit. All the other stuff and access to me and access to the group, this is more or less free. And now the prayers are, I don't know if you can hear any of this. I actually really wish you could, because the prayers for Ramadan are just beginning now, and it's very, very beautiful to get to witness this type of thing on a global basis. So the next webinar is going to be on April 15th, and this is going to be our Ready to Begin webinar. What we're going to do is take a deep dive into the supplements, and I'm going to prepare you in the best way I can with nutritional ideas, shopping ideas, eating ideas, recipe, and to answer any lingering questions that you might have so that you feel prepared. We begin the cleanse on April 19th, which is the new moon of April. The reason we start on the new moon is that by the time we get to the kill phase, parasitic activity is highest during the new moon. So we want to do our cycle of 30 days where our kill phase is oriented around the full moon to give us the best possible chance of getting rid of all of those influences in the body. And then every week for the 4 weeks, we will have, like I said, an educational Zoom, a check-in Zoom, where one of my goals is to make this really informative so that when you walk away from this experience, not only are you feeling really good, but you are armed with a new depth of information of how you can be making choices in your life and how you understand the processes that are happening that lend themselves to how you feel and how you're responding to life. So the first webinar that we will tackle together on Sunday, April 23rd will be understanding toxicity. So we're going to take a really deep dive into that subject. The second one is in understanding inflammation. I'm trying to talk fast because I want to be mindful of your time. Understanding inflammation, taking a deep dive into that topic. On Sunday, May 7th, understanding digestion, big deep dive into that subject. And then on the 14th, as we are rounding into our last few days of the cleanse together, talking about what is health and also beginning to imagine what will come next as we fulfill this program. Interspersed, because you know I can't help myself, interspersed into all of this, I'm going to be sharing with you some short breathing exercises and some short meditations, everything pre-recorded, so you can access it and interact with it in your own timing. But I'm a real advocate for integrative approach, right? Not just like taking the thing and letting the body do its physiological process, but also behaviors that can assist and support the process. And the depth to which you engage, other than hopefully like actually fulfilling the ingesting of the cleanse, the amount that you engage is totally up to you. Really invite you, if you're signing up for the cleanse, to just do it all, because it's here to be done, and we're here to support each other and learn together and journey together. And you need to do according to what you're ready to engage with. And so that invitation, I want to make loud and clear that there's no expectation, that there's no, I'm losing the word right now. There's no, like, you have to do all of these things if you sign up for the cleanse. And it is formulated in a way to enhance everything about the cleanse, to really fulfill this beautiful month-long cycle and land us in a place of empowered wisdom, of healthier bodies, and hopefully deeper integrity in our responses and choices in life. Whew. Did it. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. All right, everyone. So thank you so, so much for joining, for listening in. I know that was a ton of information, but hopefully the idea was to give you a bird's eye view, kind of the why are we doing this, and how it can assist us in entering a spring or an autumn, if you're in autumn, that is more healthful, that is more clear. And again, if you have any questions at all about the information or any of it was clear as mud rather than clear, all you have to do is please reach out to me. I will be following up also with a registration link so that you can order your kit. Would recommend that you do that. Um, Within this week so that there's plenty of time for you to get it. And I look so forward to having this journey with you.